This will be the 5th video that we've recorded. I'm going to try not to bring up too much about other videos, especially to show a whole lot of documents. But there's a couple new things that we found out. And there's a lot of things you need to know about what happened to the Minster Farmers Elevator, what was going on with crop production, and what is going on with Sunrise. The first thing I'd like to start out with is this happened on May the 20th of 2009. This is a reply brief to the Common Pleas Court, was from the Common Pleas Court to the Court of Appeals of the 3rd Appellate District. Okay, now this is filed with the 3rd Appellate District Courts in Lima. This is from the elevator's attorney, Mike Burton. So during depositions of the defendant's board members, plaintiff, which is me, discovered the following information about David Reichert. The defendant was convicted in Nogales County Municipal Court on December 11, 2001 for tampering with records. 2, he got in trouble for writing out bad checks at Minster Farmers. 3, he was allowing people to go over their credit limit. 4, Reichert owes defendant money on account for debt incurred subsequent to his deposition testimony on July the 21st of 2005 and his resignation on March the 13th, 2006. Okay, first of all, he didn't resign, he was fired. And this is the reason he was fired. Bob Deuce, a friend of mine, also had trouble with Minster Farmers, and he was fighting them at the same time I was. And he asked for a discovery, and in the discovery, he wanted all of his invoices and statements. Now, this one up here is the original that he had in his records. This one down here is the reprint. Now, if you look, you can see that there is a difference between the terms here at the bottom. And you also look on this one here, the original, it says there's a 50 down here and nothing here. Go up to the nursing formula. The original has a few digits after it. The reprint has about 8 or 10 digits in front of it. They should all be, the reprint should be exactly the same as the original. But the thing that really makes it easy to tell is if you go up to the top, you'll see the original has 5 branches listed across the top. The second and illegal set of books only has 4. And I turned this over to one of the board members, and he said if it was true that this was an illegal set of books, Reichert would be fired. And I talked to him a few days later, and he said they fired Reichert, but they made it sound good. Now, in my countersuit, because I was cheated out of $41,000 because of a contract that Reichert made with me that he did not hold true to. I tried to get the board members to get involved in it, and they refused to. I went to their attorney. He couldn't do nothing. So I thought, well, I'll just let a few $1,000s ride on my account, and sooner or later they're going to have to do something. Now, there's one thing I found out. Now, I did not know this until after I finally was able to get my files from my attorney. But if you look at like my brother's invoice here, for 11/30/01, it has 5 branches across the top. Another brother, same date, 5 branches across the top. A third brother, 5 branches across the top, same date. Here's mine, same date, 4 branches across the top. They were using an illegal set of books on my account. And it's not just 1 or 2, everything was an illegal set of books. Now, when I got basically, it's a 1099 form for my patronage dividends. And this was from the 2002 tax year. There's 5 branches across the top. I would have probably got this somewhere around February of 03 or January. And across the top, 4. So this is also all a fake. Okay, well, this is supposed to go with that one. Okay, now, Minster Farmers said that on April the 30th, I owed them $55,583. Now, there's one thing I noticed right away. They were illegally compounding interest. Now, if you were to look at the bottom here, it says 2% finance per month, 24% annual rate. That means if you have a signed contract to charge that, they can. Otherwise, they can only charge statutory rate, which is what the House Supreme Court ruled. And now, if you get looking here, the last time I paid anything was $131.02. I paid the $7,000. Now, the next month, they charged me $283 interest, $766, $456, $638. It just, well, then here it kind of went up in a row, but it still was off a little bit. And you go over to 03, 649, 418, 914, 593. What the heck are they trying to pull? They just plain stupid, think people won't catch it. I caught them doing that, and I tried to figure out, and I asked them what was going on. They said, well, it's just the way our computer is set up. So apparently, they were only picking on certain people. Now, Minster Farmers was really wanting to get this thing settled and wanted me to pay them some money, so nothing would ever come out as to what was actually going on there. So to keep the elevator from foreclosing on me, I had to come up with a $56,000 cash bond, which I was dated for 2/24/06. Now, the last bill I got, and this is after the appeals court ruled that they cannot charge, they cannot compound interest. But they continued to compound interest, and they never stopped. So now we're going to show how this $97,000 bill goes down to where they actually owed me money from day one. Okay, the Supreme Court ruled that the interest rate in this case is limited to the statutory amount calculated from the opening of the account, not from the last day of a zero balance. During my deposition, it says our records reflect that you have been a member since August of 1988. Do you agree with that? My answer was, I'm not sure. I've done business with them since the mid-70s. I was able to trace it back to at least 1973. Now, Minster Farmers is supposed to go back to 1973 and refigure all interest, if there was any. But the judge said, no, they don't have to start until 1988, a year I bought a $25 share of stock in the elevator. So when did they start figuring it? They started out January of 1999, 25 years after the Supreme Court told them they had to start. Now, the records were in the basement of the main office in Minster, because one of the employees took me down there and showed them to me. He says he knew for a fact that the records went back to the 1950s. And he says they actually went way back before that, but he wasn't for sure how far. And there's after my attorney refused, when I took the case over myself in September of 08, my attorney refused to turn over my files. But I talked to an attorney, and I told him I was having a problem getting my files. And he said, well, just mention the rules of professional conduct, rule 1.11, paragraph D, and you will get your file. So I wrote this little note, and this is just a copy of it. The original was given to his secretary or receptionist, and about 2 hours later, I had a phone call. My files were ready to be picked up. So I went in to pick them up, and when I got in there, they said, before you can have them, you have to sign a paper stating that they voluntarily gave them to me, which is not true, but they did not voluntarily give them to me. I tried for almost 8 or 9 months to get them. Finally, one thing we did find, and this is, the Supreme Court ruled on March the 26th of 2008 This is an email from the elevator's attorney, which apparently he forgot to pull this one out, and I wasn't supposed to see this, and there's a couple others too. On April the 1st at 2:08 at 5:38 in the morning, this email was sent to my attorney, and he gave, I forgot to cover up the name of the person in the company that is supposed to do all this, but it says that all parties would agree in advance that the accountant's calculation would be binding and not appealed. And they were also going to use the Excel spreadsheet Minster prepared in this case, and also in Bob Duse's case. So now it shows, this isn't from court records, it showed that I bought $126,401 worth of products. I paid $128,746. This is the same thing that my accountant, or my attorney rather, showed. So this is right on the money. Now, when they started refiguring the interest, it showed I had $11,161 bill that I owed. Now, we'll go back to the same date. This would have been 12/31/98. The papers from the elevator showed I owed $11,953. When they start refiguring the interest, it showed I owed $11,161. Well, there's $800 difference here. They should be the same. Now, I'd never caught anything, but a few months ago, I kept waking up in the middle of the night, and every time I woke up, I kept seeing this in my mind. And it went on for days, maybe weeks, and I just ignored it. Then pretty soon, something told me there's two things wrong with this, which makes this spreadsheet a fake. This is not the one that was sent by the accounting firm that did the original, the correct spreadsheet. And the one thing I caught right away is that there should have been somewhere on the top of the heading the name of the company who ran the spreadsheet. Secondly, it showed, since I bought $126,401 worth of products, and I paid them $128,000, over $2,000 more than what I owed them, that would, figuring that simple interest, that would show I would have a zero principal balance. Well, after the last payment I made, it shows I still owed $12,251. Well, I knew that can't be right. So I checked with 3 different accountants, and they all said the same thing. That should be a zero principal balance. Now, if you take this $12,251 away from this $12,383, it showed I would owe them $142 interest. Now, if you look up here where it says purchases, it's a long time since I made any purchases. So you take per month, it would show I paid $71.06 on this $12,251 principal balance. So you just take off, well, at least 5 months right there. It would show that I had a zero balance. In fact, they would have showed that they probably at that time owed me several $100s. Now, where should this $12,251 been taken off at? Probably somewhere's up in here. Don't know. So that $126,000 that I owed them, or that I had bought, is probably all that I owed them. And they were, you can see these figures, none of the figures any place come up right. And you go to the last page, well, as you go back there, you'll see there's no name on the heading of the company that did it. Same way on this last page. But now here it shows it's a balance of $126,162. Let's just lay out a minute. Okay, well, as you saw, and what you saw in the earlier videos, once the Supreme Court ruled and the judge said they had to go back to the day we started doing, both Bob and I started doing business with them. That's all that had to be done. So all they had to do was hire an accounting firm to redo the interest and somebody to get the new trial that started, which was going to be that following October. And the original trial, my countersuit against them, ended up in a mistrial because the judge gave them the interrogatories for both parts of the trial. They answered the interrogatory questions on the first one right. They answered one question on the second one, and they called it a mistrial. Okay, so after all this stuff started coming to me, I decided I'm going to go back into some of my old tax records. So I went back to 2008, and I pulled, this is a copy of the bill that was sent to Mike Burton, who was the attorney for the Minster farmers. And I had to pay half of it, which was just $1,057.50 down here. So they did not go back to 1988 like the judge said they had to, or like the Supreme Court said, back to 1973. So I waited about a month or so before I finally paid this bill because I was kind of aggravated. But it's when I went in and I talked to one of the accountants there, the original accountant who had done all this spreadsheet has retired. And I showed this to one of the other accountants there, and he says, this is definitely one of their invoices. It was sent to Michael Burton. And he would also had a copy of the spreadsheet. So right away, when I showed him this spreadsheet, he says, we did not do this one. He confirmed it. He says, if we would have, he said, our name would have been on the top. Just like if you notice back there on the one page I had from my deposition, it had the name of the company and their phone number who recorded it. So now as I was doing some more research, I went back to February of 01, and it shows from January the 31st to February the 27th, I bought 26 tankfuls of fuel. Well, 8 of these were for diesel fuel, and they were all 30-some gallon. At that time, I did not own a diesel pickup, so I never got that diesel fuel. I did own some semis, but there's no way I'm going to go in and pick up 30 to 35 gallon of fuel at a time. I'll pick up 100 to 200 gallon. And also, I never bought 90 plus fuel. I only bought just unleaded. So as close as I can figure, this bill for $1,040, I may have bought $400 worth of fuel. So there's another $600 that was added to my bill that I did not get. And as I was going, through some of this stuff, somebody came in the house and I showed him this, and he's, do you have any more invoices? So I went back through some of the invoices that I was given, and I could only find one for this month. Now, if you look at this one, there's a little difference down here, which really don't mean too much. But the guy says, boy, he said, here's a difference, there's a difference, there's a difference. Yeah, you can see I got them all marked. And now if you go up here to the top, you'll see where at the Osgood branch, up here there's no phone number. This one here has a phone number. They should be exactly the same, but they're not. This one, location 004 and 4. But what really gives it away, it said sold by, and here the initials are IH and ES. I showed it to that accountant and a bunch of other accountants. Everybody said the same exact thing. That's an illegal set of books. Now, if you notice, both of them do have the 5 branches across the top. So now, is this part of the second set of books, or is this a third set of books? I have tried to get the Attorney General's office twice while Mike DeWine was in office, and once since we got our new Attorney General, Dave Yost, and they all refused to look at it. They said, well, that's not our job. But the heck it ain't. Okay, we know that that spreadsheet was a fake. And the elevator's attorney on October, this is after I took the case over myself, it says, as you know, Minster has a motion for summary judgment pending, asking for damages of over $15,000 against you in this interest case. And he was well aware that he falsified that spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet would have showed, if they would showed the correct one, that I would not have owed them anything. They would have owed me money. That's the reason they came up with that spreadsheet, to make it look good for them. We are confident we will prevail either through summary judgment or at trial, as the interest calculation is consistent with what was ordered by the Ohio Supreme Court. Lying son of a bitch. Sorry about my language, but sometimes the more I get into this, the madder I get. Because I spent 4 years in court, and it cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight them, and this is what I get. We can't even get our elected officials to do their job and investigate this. And it says, additionally, you owe Dan Thompson $1,057.50, which I did pay, and this is in October. I already paid it, but I was not very happy when I had to pay the thing. Okay. Now, we'll talk just a touch about while this is going on. I was sending kids to college. I was my credit was ruined because they tried to foreclose on me, so I had to pay all the college bills out of my pocket. And so when I was having a little bit of trouble, I couldn't always get my bills paid on time. And only one of these did I find, because I asked both Crop Production, their attorney, Snavely, and I went to the courts to try to get a discovery. And there's one stated for 2010. This one here. This is the only one I had in my records. Now, if you look closely at these, and you would have saw this in another video I had, the count numbers are different. Sure, they look the same. Here's 743-02105. Look at this one here. It's got a 0 with a hyphen. That makes it a completely different account. And if you go over here, yeah, this one there. Okay, the address is just slightly different. Now go down to this one here, and it's got a 0743-02015. And that's got a slightly different zip code. And at one of these, this one up here, it also has me having a 330 zip code or area code. I've never ever had that. So we have proof here of at least 3 different sets of accounts. There's 3 different sets of books. And I asked, you can go back and see more detail in one of the other videos. But I originally asked Jeff, and I think his last name is Eulenhanke. This is a copy of a letter I sent to him, asking for my discovery. He refused to give it to me. I asked J. Trent Snavely for discovery. He refused to give it to me. The law says they have to give it to you. So, and I couldn't get it, so I talked to an attorney. I said, well, what do I have to do to get it? So he said, just file in the Common Pleas Court a crop production, a request for discovery and production of documents. So that's what we did. And it was the same judge that was involved in this other case. He refused to do anything. Had they turned over the documents, it would have proved how much money I owed them, or they owed me rather. Somebody I know did some checking with somebody that was up above him who worked for crop production. And he did some checking, and his record showed that crop production had taken me for over $100,000. That's the reason they refused to turn all this stuff over. So, and there's something else that we've found out, and this was brought to my attention, it's been over 2 years ago. And there's a lot of people got billed for products they didn't get. In this one case, this same individual, I keep everybody's names out of this and their addresses and all that. But now if you look, okay, this same individual, 2 different account numbers, and neither one of those account numbers are his. And it shows that the propane was delivered to 2 different places. And nobody ever heard of either one of those routes before. Now this one up here shows he bought $290 worth of propane. And it was just a recent bill, so it was 1 to 30 days old. This one shows that the same guy owed $165,000 on his account. Somebody pointed out down here at the bottom, old G was across here. Now what's somebody trying to cover up or what? Now I turned all this stuff over to the Attorney General's office. Nobody wants to do anything about it. What all this is about, and they said it was a mistake, and I talked to some accountants and business owners, and they all said the same thing. It was not a mistake. So I can't prove it one way or the other. That's the reason I'm showing all this stuff to everybody, and I've been told by somebody pretty high up in our government to make sure this stuff is all turned over to the Attorney General's office again. So this time, it better be looked at. Some of the stuff might be too old, records destroyed already, so I don't know how far they can go back. But I know they can go back on this to find out what was going on. Now, is this the same thing that was going on with Minster Farmers with all their different sets of books? I can't say for sure. But I did have even one accountant come right out to my place and said that Sunrise is running multiple sets of books. Okay, I just want to show everybody what has been going on, the different companies, with our judicial system, who you can see what the attorneys, they refused to do what they were supposed to. The judges didn't do what they were supposed to. What's going on with all these other documents? I can't say it. That's the reason. All the accountants that I have talked to says all this stuff is illegal. And everyone, when I always ask at least 3 different accountants a question, show them the same papers, and always got exactly the same answer from everyone. So I feel that all this is 100% accurate. So I just want everybody to be able to watch what's going on with their records and look out for the different sets of books. And like the invoices from Minster Farmers, where there's 4 branches on the heading on some of the papers, and some only had 5, or had the 5. I showed those invoices to dozens and dozens of people. That one with Bob Dues, nobody could ever find the differences. It's unless you know what you're looking for, you're never going to find it. But when I showed it to accountants, all they did, one quick glance down, they all said the same thing within a second. 2 illegal sets of books. So, watch your books. Poised to help me get the Attorney General's office involved in this to see what's going on, and there's probably a heck of a lot more companies out there that's doing the same thing. But in the meantime, I have noticed that individual companies, the small companies, are doing a real good job of doing everything accurately. There's quite a few of them that's charging over the rate on the interest. You got 2%, 24% interest, and they do not have agreements signed to do that, which is completely illegal. So that's the only thing I have found recently that is actually pretty widespread. And if you go back and look at the first videos, and if you go talk to your attorney and your accountants, they can help you if you think you got money possibly coming back. Thank you for your time.